You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
And on today's Weight Loss and Wellness Wednesday, we're going to be talking about why men burn more body fat on average than women and why that is. So typically, I like to go through the 5 factors that affect the metabolism, and in women, how they down-regulate the metabolism versus men. So this is something we talk about all the time in my body transformation studio and my functional medicine practice in Boston. We like to really walk people through the process step by step. And the reason for this is that once you understand this, then you can understand why you may have failed in the past, why it may not have worked, and what you can do different going forward. And I truly believe that education is the key. So people will really buy into something, a concept, an idea, a theory, if they can understand why they're doing what they're doing. But if you just ask people to count points or drop their carbs or do this or do that, and they don't know why, it's much harder to get people to stick with it. So our goal is simply this. We want to get people the best results they've ever seen in their entire life. Whether they've worked with nutritionists in the past, functional medicine doctors, whether they work with personal trainers, it doesn't matter. When people entrust their health to us, because really when we're talking about weight loss, we're talking about health, we want to make sure that we don't let them down. And really, over the years, we've been able to develop a system that helps to boost the metabolism. And we do it from a very natural-based perspective. I'm going to explain all of that to you today. So essentially, if you're working with a personal trainer right now, if you're working with a local functional medicine doctor or a local nutritionist, you want to make sure that these 5 factors are being looked after, right? So that they're not being overlooked. So what I want to do right now is just kind of get into it. And as always, I want to explain the process. And as we're going through it, I'm going to let you know why it's happening to your body. And then at the end, I'll let you know how to reverse it, how to just flip the switch to turn back on the metabolism so that women can try to boost their fat burning potential as much as men. And if your fat burning has dropped over the last couple of years, we'll tell you how to switch that back on as well. So, of course, there are more than 5 factors, but I needed to pick out the 5 biggest ones using what I call my 80-20 rule. And again, I didn't make that up. It's called Pareto's principle. Essentially, what it means is this. That you have 100% of effort that you're going to put in. But 20% of your effort, so the smaller amount, but 20% of your effort is going to lead to 80% of your results. And that's been studied in economics. It's been studied all over the world. It's called Pareto's principle. They've written books on it, although you really don't need to read a 300-page book, which I did, just on a concept that tells you that 20% of your work will lead to 80% of your results. And then the 80% of the stuff you do, you should cut out because it's only really leading to 20% of the results. And it's leaving you frustrated, trying to measure your food, which is totally unnecessary. So let's get into factor number 1. All right. So factor number 1, we're going to go over psychology and physiology. That means how the brain works and how the body works. And believe it or not, they are connected. And, a lot of, our American medical system doesn't like to believe that your body can actually affect your brain and your brain can affect your body. But we know it does, since your brain actually sends signals down your spinal column. And what happens is, it innervates nerves, and those nerves actually tell the cells what to signal. They tell the organs to turn on or off. There's the autonomic nervous system. There's many different parts of the nervous system, much of which that we never even think about. I would say the majority that we're never even thinking about, except for our gross movements, essentially, or fine movements as well. So here's the thing. Multiple studies, and I've talked about this before on previous Cabral concepts, so I just want to reiterate and just give you kind of a cursory overview again, instead of going over a 10-minute show in this, is that women, and I think we know this instinctively as well, as a whole, again, we're making generalizations, which I know nobody likes to do, but we still have to do it because if it's the truth, it's the truth. And it seems that men tend more towards aggressive-based behavior. So there's actually a book written on this. It's called Heart and Stroke-Based Syndrome. And so what happens is men are also being shown, besides cholesterol, all of those things, to be more prone to heart attacks and strokes because of this arterial-based constriction, this over-aggressiveness. Where women, on the other hand, may not get as much of that aggressive output, but they may turn more towards comfort eating. So men, they might get angry, maybe they lash out, or whatever it is. Again, these are all unhealthy behaviors, but they're natural human emotions that all of us go through. Women get angry as well, and men use comfort eating too, or they use drinking. So it's again, we both do this, but it just seems that when we're looking at studies and we're looking at this book that I just mentioned as well, we're looking at women turning more towards comfort food and using it as an emotional outlet due to stress. And we'll be talking about stress in just a moment. So you have to keep in mind, you have to really do an intake and an inventory on your life. And I talk about this quite a lot on Mindset and Motivation Mondays. So please check out those shows if you have not. Every Monday, we really try to set you on the right track. That's really what it's all about. So here's the thing. You have to become aware. When you become aware of your life and your go-tos, like, okay, after dinner, my mind's left to wander. And at that point, I start to snack. I start to sit down because I don't know what to do with my body, with my time. That's really, really important that we start to make changes. And I've spoken about this before, about how not to eat before bed and all the different little tricks, like brushing your teeth right after dinner, all these different types of things, or making yourself a chamomile tea or a nice tea to sip on, rather, or even just a touch of raw honey or maple syrup just to give you that sweet if needed. So we've talked about those things before, but the important thing is that you first become aware. Are you a mid-afternoon snacker? Do you skip too many meals and then overeat at times? Really important to check that out. Okay. Number 2 is that men overall have faster metabolisms. Again, we're making generalizations, but for the most part, most men have more muscle mass on their body than women. And it's somewhere around 10% or greater. So as we look at a general population, men are taller on average, and they have more muscle mass. Well, that muscle mass actually helps to boost metabolism. It helps to actually burn more body fat because your muscle, believe it or not, is kind of like a detriment to your body. It requires calories every day. So men are allowed to eat a little bit more calories if their muscles need that fuel, especially if they're exercising. So men with a lot of muscle who do exercise then increase their caloric demand, which means they're allowed to eat more calories, sometimes twice as much as women for the same size because they have much more muscle mass and it's metabolically active. That allows them to consume more carbs and fat and protein and all of the different macronutrients. So it's really important to look at as well. So never judge yourself, meaning like, well, how come that person gets to eat more than I do? Why does my husband or partner or whoever it might be get to eat more? Because it could be 2 guys as well. And one guy might be 140 pounds, same exact height. Maybe he's 5'8", and the other guy's 180 pounds. The 180-pound guy just has a lot more muscle on his body, larger legs, glutes, where the metabolism is really located. So again, never compare yourself to someone else and just understand that you do need to move your body to make whatever muscle mass you do have metabolically active. And maybe even more important, you need to start exercise. You need to tune back into my Training Thursday, which was podcast number 629. 629. It's time to switch over to cold weather workout routines. That will tell you how to put on a little bit of muscle mass. Again, muscle mass is not going to make you bulky. It will not. You add 15 pounds of muscle, you'll see a big difference, but women are going to have a really hard time putting on 15 pounds of muscle. Trust me on that. That is not likely to happen. And even if it does, you're going to gain like a half a pound to a pound maximum per month. And so at any time, you could stop and slow down if you needed to. Again, everything I say, there's a exception to the rule. So please do keep that in mind, all the personal trainers and strength coaches that are listening right now. I understand that there are always, I see a lot of women who have a lot more muscle than guys. I see women at CrossFit who have a lot more muscle than guys, and they're going to be more metabolically active. So good for them. All right. Number 3 is this. Men produce more anabolic hormones such as testosterone and usually DHEA than women. So we know there's a positive correlation between testosterone and DHEA and muscle mass building while simultaneously burning body fat. So here's the deal. If you can build muscle easier, which is more metabolic and burns more calories, and then when you exercise, it even takes that to another level, and you're burning more body fat because you have more testosterone, you can easily see now how the more testosterone you have in your body, and this is more typical for men than women, although a lot of the pitta body type or the mesomorph body type for women do have more testosterone. And the way that I test this all the time is that women simply run the weight loss test, which is a thyroid plus adrenal plus hormones, or they just run the adrenal and hormone test. They get to see their cortisol levels during the day, which is really important. I'll talk about that in a minute. And you get to see the testosterone levels. Now, that higher level of testosterone will increase libido, it'll increase stamina, it will increase energy, drive, ambition, and it will increase your muscle building potential. So this is a good thing. Women really do want to keep this really, really important. It's even good for bone growth. So super important right there. Okay, factor number 4 is that men seem to do so much better. Like, I mean, anecdotally, if I can just tell you from my practice, 5 times, 10 times better with low carb diets than women. So for some women, it works, and it works initially. So we put women on a lower carb diet, not a no carb diet, but a lower carb diet for 21 days. And then we start to ease carbs back into their diet, such as fruits and such as starches. And again, you can listen to my podcast called Transitioning Off of a Low Carb Diet to figure out how to do that. And then we find out their carbohydrate threshold. Remember, I practice bioindividuality, which means I'm talking to you right now through the miracle of this internet. And although we've never met, I understand that you are not going to be exactly the same as your friends or your coworkers or even your family. So that's why I can help you just by making these tweaks on your own, and you'll be able to figure this out for yourself. You really will. So that helps tremendously. Now, do keep in mind, this whole keto thing going right now, well, it can work great for women for a period of a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe even 6 weeks. And all of a sudden, the weight loss starts to stop. And when it stops, well, at this point, we've most likely slowed our metabolism. And that's because these lower carbohydrate diets, again, I lab test all the time. So if you want evidence, we have all the evidence in the world. We lab test, we do something called the weight loss test. It's also called the thyroid plus adrenal plus hormone test. And we can see their TSH levels start to go up, which means the body's increasing demand for thyroid. We see activated T4 go down, and we see the active usable form of T3 go down as well. So why is this important? Well, if your thyroid starts to get lower, your actual overall metabolic process is going to go down. Not just fat burning, but your overall drive, ambition, libido, everything. Everything starts to slow because that is your barometer. And I've spoke about this. This is a really important episode. Hopefully you tuned to that one. It's called, let's see if I can find it real quick. Well, in the past couple Weight Loss Wednesdays, and let's go right here. It is episode number 600 and episode number 593. I talked about how a slow thyroid really can make you overweight and unhappy. And I told you exactly the minerals that's needed to reboost the thyroid, the toxins that can lower it in the first place as well. That was a really, really important episode. I hope you check that out as well. And now our 5th factor plays right into this 4th one. So I just kind of want to roll right into it. And that's that stress. So a keto diet or a low carb diet for women, again, not always for men. So it's very interesting to look at it like that, okay? Why would this matter? Okay. Well, it seems like the keto diet is causing more stress on women because when we look at lab testing, we can see it's elevating cortisol levels. And when cortisol levels start to get elevated, well, thyroid starts to go lower. But something else interesting starts to happen. Progesterone starts to drop. Now, we have a lot of theories on this. And the theory is this, and it makes total sense, that when your body's in a starvation-based state, when it's in a famine-based state, when it's in a time of war or angst, your body, again, whether that's happening or not, when your body feels that type of stress, genetically, it's going to slow down or stop your menstrual cycle, or at least what's called the luteal phase, which is around days 14, 15 or so to days 28. And progesterone is supposed to be at its peak right around day 20, 21, 22, right around there. Again, in most women's cycles, there are always exceptions. So when this happens, though, and progesterone levels start to drop, it's much harder to get pregnant. So I've done a bunch of shows on fertility as well, and I explain exactly why there's so much fertility right now in the world, especially the industrialized, stress-filled world. And also why this causes weight gain. Because when cortisol levels go up, thyroid goes down, estrogen goes up, or estrogen just stays normal, but it looks high relative to progesterone because it's supposed to be in a nice ratio. What happens is we get what's called a rebound effect or a secular effect. And what happens is higher levels of estrogen or relative estrogen creates estrogen dominance. This will in turn increase inflammation, increase cortisol, decrease thyroid. So now we get more of exactly what we don't want. You can see why this is so frustrating, especially for a lot of women. Now, this does happen to men, so I want to include men in this as well. This is never just about one sex or the other. It's not, because again, we're biologically very, very similar, so these things do affect us. But we have to understand when we start to get those higher levels of estrogen too, and again, you can just do a adrenal and hormone test or do the big test, which I recommend, which is the thyroid, adrenal, and hormone test, also called the weight loss test. So when you see this and cortisol levels start to go up, your body becomes imbalanced when it comes to what's called leptin and ghrelin. And please, again, just go to stephencabral.com/podcast, and you can just simply look up leptin and ghrelin. And leptin and ghrelin, it's LEPTIN and then GHRELIN. Leptin and ghrelin are our fat-burning hormones. And I explained exactly why those fat-burning hormones start to drop when our body is under stress. This is just so, so important. So what do you do with all this? Well, the first thing you can do is you can lab test. You can do the thyroid plus adrenal plus hormone test. Like that's the best place to start. And if that's too expensive, it's not working for you, well, then you could simply do a hair tissue mineral analysis, which I believe might be $200 less. And you'll still get to see if your body is stressed by electrolyte-based stress. So both great labs. If I had to pick one or the other, of course, I would do the hormone lab, the thyroid plus adrenal plus hormones, which includes, I keep saying that, but includes testosterone, DHEA, estrogen, cortisol times 4 throughout the day. It includes thyroid as in TPO antibodies. It's going to include T3, T4. It will include TSH. It will look at your vitamin D levels. It will look at your insulin. It's a remarkable test. It really is. And it will show you your cortisol stress levels throughout the day. I'm a huge fan of that test. I did it when I was around 2021, when I finally found a functional medicine doctor. It didn't get me completely well, but he helped set me on the right track. And that for just what that's worth is, worth its weight in gold. And I'm truly appreciative of that. And that's why I'm such a big proponent of lab testing, because without that, I don't think I would have figured out that it was my adrenals. And then after that, I got tested for Addison's disease by my PCP, and then my PCP confirmed that I had Addison's disease. But without that functional medicine doctor saying, hey, let's look at your adrenals, I would have never known. And it's just shocking that none of the other doctors knew, but they didn't. And so that's okay. And so you could test, or you could start to rebalance the body right away. And what does that mean? Well, my recommendation is that you need to tell your body that it's not in a state of stress, not in famine. Okay, it's not in time of war. It's not in a time of drought. You're drinking plenty of water. You're giving your body a nice smoothie in the morning, okay? 1 cup of berries. It's very low glycemic. Put a cup of spinach in there as well. Put a little bit of healthy fat if you do want. You can put some flax seeds if you like. Flax seeds are great for removing excess estrogen from the body as well. Nice amount of fiber in there too to keep you satiated. So I'm a big fan of that. Lots of water. 16 to 20 ounces minimum in that smoothie. You can use the daily nutritional support, which is of course what I do. And then I would also add 1 tablespoon of the daily fruit and vegetable blend, which is 22 organic fruits and vegetables. Again, if you don't want to use the Equilibrium Nutrition products, that's totally fine. But the reason why you have to do this is you have to get all of your micronutrients, which are your vitamins, your minerals, and then the greens powder, which is the 22 organic fruits and vegetables, highest quality available. It tells your body that you're loaded up. You are loaded up with all the nutrition you need. So now your body says, wow, we have fuel. We're not starving. And then it can start to burn body fat again. That's just so, so important. Then you can start to include things like dry brushing in the morning, maybe a little bit of 5 minutes of meditation before you leave for work, 5 minutes before bed. You can make a to-do list before bed. You can do very calming practices like stretching and hatha yoga. You can start to do your 10,000 steps a day walking. All of the things that calm the parasympathetic nervous system or calm the sympathetic nervous system, get you into the parasympathetic, and start to just really rejuvenate the body. So what I gave you right there was more of a rejuvenation-based program than it was a fat-burning program, because remember, a healthy body can't be overweight. It's impossible. I talked about that last week, what nobody ever tells you about being overweight. That was episode 636. You can't. It's literally impossible. So if you're 30 pounds plus overweight right now, 25 plus pounds overweight, the bottom line is this. Your body is not healthy. I'm not saying that to be mean at all. I'm not. I'm saying that because I'm trying to warn you, basically. I'm trying to tell you that it's time to take action. Because a healthy body, if you're not blatantly overeating, right? And if you're not completely sedentary, your body really shouldn't be 30 plus pounds overweight. So I want you to live the healthiest, happiest life you can. And I just know that the only way I'm going to get you to be able to do that is you don't have to be stick thin. I don't even want you to be stick thin because I don't think that's that healthy. But I want you to get within a healthy BMI. And again, you can go back to that show, 635, for the BMI. And we linked up the BMI calculators. You can figure out if you're between 19 and 24.9. And so again, whatever I can do, just let me know. I'm here to help. I'm here to really serve as best as I can. I want to provide this information to you and give you exactly what we do at Stephen Cabral Studio and our concierge practice online as well. So that's what I do. That's what I recommend. And people have asked, can you do a detox? Can you do the Dr. Cabral detox? Yes. The Dr. Cabral detox will kickstart your results, the 7-day, 14-day, or 21-day. But I want you to remember, that's a detox for a finite period of time, 7 days, 14 days, 21 days. Get well, lose the weight, and start to live longer. But you have to maintain it, okay? I want you to just start doing, even if it's just one thing, even if it's just the smoothie to maintain it, stick with that. I know you will love the results, and I can't wait to hear your success story soon. I want to sincerely thank you for your support of this podcast. I couldn't do it without you, and I mean that. I truly do. I also want to make sure you knew that we now have multiple ways for you to find your answers to the most difficult health, wellness, weight loss, and anti-aging questions. You can find podcast-specific topics like thyroid, adrenal, hormones, sleep, digestion, Ayurveda, and many more at stevencabral.com/podcasts that will then link you to your favorite Apple, Spotify, and other podcast players. Plus, all new podcasts and weekly exclusive video content is being added to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Stephen Cabral. And that's Stephen with a PH. Head on over and subscribe so that you don't miss any of the exclusive content. Lastly, if you've ever found any of my podcasts or books to be helpful, I would really appreciate it if you could leave a review on iTunes or your favorite media player for the podcast. Rating and subscribing to the YouTube and podcast allow me to reach more and more people and help spread my mission of healing throughout the world. Thank you again for being a part of this movement.